Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, this is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Today, our spotlight game of the week, Texas Tech goes to Iowa State. Tech coming off a heartbreaking loss this past Saturday. We got our man, Jarret Johnson. We're going to talk about that and a little bit more as far as moving forward to this Iowa State game. We'll also have Alec on to discuss Iowa State and what they did in their bye week and the upcoming week here. So before we get into all of that, remember, everybody, continue to like, follow, subscribe. We got a race to try to get to 3,000 subscribers before the end of the season. So if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do, and like, follow, and continue to leave those comments. We appreciate it. So first things first, my man Jarret, how is it going today?
Big B, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I love talking football with you.
I appreciate it, man. Look, heartbreaking loss Saturday. Just a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns. First, out of the gate, TCU just comes out, punches Tech directly in the mouth. And you're like, uh-oh, this one could get away. And then Tech just kind of takes the punch and says, no, we got some haymakers that we were just hiding. And they score 28 in a row. And I even tweeted out, I'm like, oh, yeah, this one looks like it could be over. Tech has taken control of the football game. And then they let TCU get back in it. First off, we'll stop there. Tell me about the ups and downs of that portion of the game, Jarret.
Yeah, it really was. I know it's a cliche, but it was a roller coaster. You had Barry Morton get hurt right before the half. Tech starting quarterback, true freshman Will Hammond came in and lit TCU up.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just him, but Taj Brooks, Tech's stud running back. I mean, he's carried a heavy workload. He did last season, and he has this year as well. And we're kind of starting to see that a little bit. Him kind of he's still putting up good numbers, playing well, but we're seeing him kind of slow down. So true freshman running back Jacoby Williams came in, and he's a guy that Tech wanted to redshirt because you have Taj, but he's really impressed everybody. They're really excited about him, and he kind of shocked TCU with his burst of speed as well. He had over 40 yards rushing, was averaging like 7 yards a carry. So you had a true freshman backfield on the road in a one-score game. It was a 3-point game, and they lit TCU up. They did. But two fatal flaws came back and bit Texas Tech. And TCU, of course, their staff is very familiar with Texas Tech's roster, and I think they did a great job. And you got to give TCU credit because they came back and took that game from Texas Tech. But the two fatal flaws for Texas Tech is their secondary, which is just atrocious. And really, when you look at the defense, they have two really good inside linebackers who have won games for them. They had a really good performance from Harvey Dyson, an edge rusher who had a strip sack and then also had a deflection that led to an interception in that game against TCU. But they just couldn't cover anybody. TCU bombed away, had some really explosive plays in the passing game, and that's how they were able to erase the 17-point deficit. And then Texas Tech was marching in for a go-ahead field goal in the final closing minutes, and their offensive line really there was a lot of people were mad at the play call, at this or that, the coaches. And what I saw on film was there was 5 guys in the box. You try to run a quarterback a young quarterback that ran for 3,000 yards in his high school career, already had a rushing touchdown in that game, and you just didn't block him up. TCU just flat out whipped your butt, made a good play, and that won them the game. So on one hand, you got to tip the cap to TCU. I really believe in that, and I think in this instance especially. But also, those two fatal flaws, Tech just can't seem to, at times, compensate for those problems.
Right. I was one of those people, Jarret, and I'll admit that I was critical of the play call. Not necessarily running the ball in that situation. I just thought they should have given it to Taj Brooks. Look, this is the guy that a lot of people think is the best running back in this conference. And I just thought, hey, I know what they were trying to do. You're trying to center the ball, get a field goal. I get it.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I thought maybe take your chances and try to score a touchdown there. But even if you're just trying to center the ball, I'm like, give it to that guy and let him do it versus the true freshman. Look, but that's not an excuse for fumbling the football. Look, you got it.
No.
You can't do it. You just can't fumble. I just thought they could have done that in that situation, but it's it's heartbreaking because it was a very good football game. TCU had it, or not TCU, Tech had it rolling. TCU came back, took the game away.
Yeah.
Where do they go from here, I should say, is a good question because it's Iowa State next.
Yeah, I want to answer that, but I want to go back to that play because, as you can imagine, it's dominated talk around, inside the Red Raiders and Texas Tech football. But my first reaction was exactly what you said, was like, you're playing not to lose by just centering the football. You have Taj Brooks there, get him the ball. And then when I went back and actually saw what Texas Tech saw and the reasoning, I think they were trying to get the first down. And I actually asked offensive coordinator Zach Kittley and Joey McGuire about that play and all that just here on Monday during the weekly presser. And I don't like playing not to lose. I don't. But I think they thought they were going to be in coverage, which if you go back and look at a still like a picture of Texas Tech or TCU's defense, it was cover 4, just a really light box. Taj Brooks is one of your best blockers, honestly. So it made a little more sense after talking to him, getting their side of it. It didn't work. And it's ultimately end result is it didn't work, and it's a big time. It's a results business. So where does Texas Tech go from here? Well, you got Iowa State, who as you mentioned, you're gonna have Alec on. He said going into the season, he thought Iowa State had a really good chance of kind of having that kind of special season, that he thought maybe they were being undervalued. And he was right. They're just solid. They're obviously a well-coached team, a balanced offense, and a very hard-nosed defense, great defensive coordinator. Iowa State, for whatever reason, in basketball and football, it's really tough to win there. So what Texas Tech is staring at is a 3-game losing streak, coming off a 4-game winning streak. And you got Colorado coming to Lubbock right after that. Colorado's been better than both you and I, what we expected. I think a lot of people. I mean, they're right there with Kansas State, right below BYU. They're in contention for a lot of things, Colorado is. And Texas Tech is dead last in Division I football in pass defense. When you think of Colorado, what do you think of? Shedeur Sanders, the great receiving talent. I mean, Hunter, all that. I mean, that doesn't, even though it's in Lubbock, that doesn't seem like a good recipe. You got Oklahoma State, obviously down, but it's there. And then you finish up with West Virginia, who West Virginia will come to your house and kick your butt if you don't play well. It's not a great team, but it's a solid team. It's a bowl team. It's gonna be it's a respectable team. So what Texas Tech is staring at is the most difficult portion of its schedule, and right now they're reeling. Now it is like a typical Tech thing, as we like to say, for them to lose 2 games on paper, which looks like they should win, and then go win a game that nobody's giving them any shot at winning.
Right.
That just seems to have happened through Tech's history. I'm going all the way back, probably before this, but I remember Spike Dykes. They lose to North Texas and they beat A&M, and you're like, what? How did that happen? But that's college football, and that's Texas Tech, and the life of a Red Raider fan or somebody who follows Texas Tech, and so. There's an opportunity there to win some meaningful games, but there's also opportunity lost in having dropped these 2 games against in-state conference rivals, Baylor and TCU.
Yeah, that was my thing. It's like it's in-state conference rivals. A lot of people were talking about, people weren't giving Tech a lot of credit for what they had done through the season. And then the Baylor game, I'm like, you can't ask for respect and then give up 59 at home to Baylor. It just doesn't go that way. But I thought it was a bounce back week. What I will say, though, even in the loss, nobody likes to lose, and there's no moral victories or anything like that, is that they didn't quit. It's not like they quit, and they had every opportunity to quit in this game multiple times, Jarret. That's the thing. They could have said, they're up 14-3. This one's over. Let's cash it in. Oh, you know what? They've come all the way back and have taken the lead. Let's just get rid of it. We're done. They didn't quit, man. And that's a sign of it is kids are battling out there. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle at Iowa State for sure. It's going to be an uphill battle the rest of the season because that schedule, it's not easy. But when you have a team, it's kind of what I've been talking about Baylor. When you've got a team that is still fighting, That's half the battle, be honest with you. As long as you haven't lost your locker room and kids are still battling for you, then, okay, now you got a chance. And it's college football, especially in the Big 12. The Big 12 is absolutely insane. So I would say, any Tech fans that are a little discouraged, you've got a team that's still fighting out there. So as long as they're still fighting, they got a fighting chance, Jarret.
Yeah, it's a high character team. I mean, I've covered some Texas Tech teams which quite honestly, I was like, man, these guys, I don't know. Like just being honest. I think it's got a high IQ. There's some veterans there, but there's some young guys, and they have a good character, a good mix of leadership and want to, for lack of a better term. And they believe in Joey McGuire. They believe in their coaching staff. So they're going to fight. You worry, it's human nature, though, at some point, if this thing snowballs, if it becomes a 3-game losing streak, a 4-game losing streak, and they go into that final bye, like, where are they at? And that comes down to coaching. But no, they're fighting. They're battling. And like I said, this is most of these guys I've interviewed a million times going back to their sophomore, junior years in high school because of the recruiting process. And I'm not pretending like I know them, but I do believe it's a high character team all the way around. I mean, for the most part, like the average.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, you're not going to have high character every single person. You're not going to have that anything, much less a football team. It just is what it is.
You want some of those dogs on your team too, though, right, Big B? You want some of those guys
you need
I
some
don't know about this guy.
Yeah, you need some of those guys that'll just fight you anywhere. That'll fight you anywhere. You got to have those guys on your football team to be a good football team anyway. I know it's early in the week, Jarret, but just looking at this game, is there anything in particular that you say, okay, Tech's got to do this to be able to win the football game?
Well, they have to score when they get in the red zone, which is easier said than done against Iowa State. They got to punch it in for touchdowns. Even against TCU, they got a big turnover, a strip sack, like I mentioned, by Harvey Dyson. And then Tech the offense didn't punch it in. You got Taj Brooks, but the offense wasn't able to punch it in. You did a fake field goal. Reese Burkhardt did the whole MAGA T-shirt thing. I don't know if you saw that. I'm not saying make any political statement. I just thought that was like, come on, that was weird. But so the offense has to be efficient in the red zone. But then I guess you can say this every week, but the one saving grace for this defense is it has forced a lot of turnovers. I mean, they forced 3 turnovers against TCU. To me, they have to continue that trend if they have any shot at getting out of Ames with a victory, not just a moral victory, but an actual W.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, Iowa State's a good team, and they usually don't beat themselves. So you've got to win the turnover battle. Scoring in the red zone, always important. Can't settle for field goals. The thing about Iowa State is, as far as offensively with them, I don't know that they necessarily do anything spectacular, but they do everything well, and that makes them tough. That makes them tough to beat, is because, you could maybe, okay, well, we're going to stop the run game. Well, they can throw it. Okay, but you know what? We're going to put a light box out there and play coverage. Well, then they can run it. So, and it's like you said, they don't do anything just extraordinary or anything, but they do things very well. It's going to be a tough game, but I am definitely looking forward to it. And more importantly, Jarret, man, I don't get to talk to you enough. So this was good, man. I am happy that I was able to talk to you. I know we'll do a lot more talking during basketball season, just because a lot more games and the season is a little longer. So, but I appreciate you always giving us time, man. I really do, because you don't have to do that, number one. And you've always given us time. You have always, I shouldn't say appreciate, but you've always supported what we're trying to do here, man. And I just thought this was a channel. Look, you've kind of shown me the ropes just by talking to me, because, again, I'm not a journalist. I just know sports. I know football and basketball, and I've always had a really, really good time of talking to you. So I just wanted to let you know that, and thank you for what you have done for this channel up to this point, man. I really do.
Man, Big B, you're going to choke me up, man. Dang, I appreciate all the love, and right back at you. It's been great. You and I, when we were just talking about, hesitate to say it, the Cowboys off camera, like, I just enjoy talking, sports, football with real dudes, you know?
Right.
And you said you're not a journalist, and that's evident because most of us journalists are nerds. You look to the left, look to the right, you're in a room. You went to media day, you're like, nerds, you know? So I love coming on the channel. I think you said you're pushing towards 3,000, so it's really growing, and that makes sense to me. A lot of the other insiders of 24/7 Sports do a great job. You're gonna have Alec on, and he's awesome. So yeah, man, anytime. I love coming on, and I can't wait till the next time.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Well, we will be right back, like I said, with Alec Busey on the other side of this, talking about Iowa State and this matchup between Texas Tech and Iowa State. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right, welcome back, guys. We got Alec Busey here on the other half of this, a featured game between Texas Tech and Iowa State. Look, Alec, Iowa State, first of all, they had a bye week. Let's start there. How did they handle their bye week? Was it a lot of fundamentals, just guys getting healthy, take it easy? What did Iowa State do during their bye week?
Yeah, they certainly focused a lot of their bye week attention on treating it a lot of the fundamental things. So your bowl practice, your spring practice type setup, they do a lot of that during their bye weeks as well. I also would say they used it as a big opportunity to get healthy because this is a team that, pretty famously is banged up, especially at the linebacker position. But in the comeback win over UCF, they had to see tight end Ben Brammer go down with a leg injury. They saw running back Carson Hansen also go down with a few different injuries. It sounds like they're hoping to be a little bit more healthy this weekend against Texas Tech. We'll see if Bramer is available. We'll see if Hansen's available. Matt Campbell spoke about it yesterday. I'm skeptical on Bramer's availability. I don't think any of the three linebackers, Carson Willich, Will McLaughlin, or Caleb Bacon, are going to be back, and they might not come back at all this year based off of the timeline Campbell's kind of outlined, and he didn't comment on the status of Carson Hansen. So we'll see how healthy they are, but yeah, it was a big week of fundamentals, bowl, spring type practices, and then getting healthy as well.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you mentioned linebacker injuries. It's just crazy how many linebackers have gotten injured at Iowa State, and you're starting to see that affect, the defense. I mean, last time out, UCF ran for 354, and UCF couldn't really throw the football, and they were just running it. It's got to be a concern. It's got to be something that they worked on, especially with Taj Brooks coming to town this week.
Yeah, and I think you have to give credit to UCF too, right? Like they're a top 5, top 10 rushing offense in the entire country. That's a really good backfield. But Penny Boone didn't play, but you did see Ja'Cory Brown run all over Iowa State as well. It was really RJ Harvey's show, though, and I think that you trust Sean Haycock to make a lot of those adjustments and a lot of those improvements for Iowa State because he's done such a good job of that throughout the last several years on the Cyclone defensive side. Beyond that, though, I mean, it's another difficult task for them, and they're going to have a few more of these against some of the Big 12's top run defenses because you've got K-State remaining on the schedule, you've got KU remaining on the schedule, which obviously has Devin Neal and Daniel Highshaw in the backfield for KU, and Jalen Daniels is a capable runner as well. So to me, yeah, it's just another really good test for them against a quality rushing offense, and Iowa State's rushing defense hasn't been the greatest this year. I mean,
right.
They struggled against North Dakota. They struggled against Iowa. They played pretty well, I thought, against West Virginia, but really struggled against UCF, like you said. So certainly a thing to circle in this matchup.
So Rocco Beck, who I think we've talked about either on this show or on a previous one on Game Day, Big 12 Insiders Game Day, Rocco Beck doesn't get the credit for being that good of a quarterback within this conference or even in the country. And I think it's a travesty that he doesn't get talked about as being one of the better quarterbacks. He pretty much put Iowa State on his back when the game got tight against UCF and led them to victory. Is that the formula moving forward, or would they still like to try to keep it balanced like they have for most of the season?
Yeah, I think they still want to keep it balanced. If you look at some of the success that Iowa State's had here of late in the last few games, they've actually ran the ball a lot better prior to the bye week. They were more effective on the ground, I think, rushing for at least 200 yards in wins over Houston, Baylor, West Virginia, and then I don't remember off the top of my head if they were in for 200 yards against UCF as well. It looks like they were in for 256. So they started to run the ball pretty well. I would also say that, in that game against UCF, Rocco didn't really play that well. He had the 2 pick sixes, essential pick sixes,
Right.
One of them, the player dropped at the 1 yard line on his way into the end zone, and UCF punched it in on the next play. So I wouldn't even say that was one of Rocco's best games, but he executed flawlessly on the 2-minute drive to get Iowa State into the end zone and kind of clinch a win in a certain sense. So yeah, I think that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, but he's really steady and he's really consistent. And I think he's really helped by having two of the best receivers in the conference and maybe the best receiving duo in the conference that is in Colorado.
Absolutely. You understand that. You talk about that. I'm sure Iowa State fans absolutely know that as well. But I don't think a lot of people that cover the conference or even talk about the conference understand how good Iowa State receiving core is. But they should after you play them, or if you just paid attention to them.
Yeah.
Best in the conference, in my opinion. And
I think Rocco, I know I said I don't think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think he's really good. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I think he's an excellent passer. I think he's really successful. He just doesn't have some of the like high-end talent pop that you see from other guys, but he's just incredibly productive and really consistent. Has already thrown for over 1,700 yards, has 11 touchdowns on the year, I think 5 interceptions, and 2 of those came against UCF. So he's been really good for them all season. I mean, he's a top 30 quarterback, 35 quarterback in the country at worst. So he's certainly a really good player, and you can win a lot of games with them. And you've seen that over the last 2 years as he led them to a 7-5 record last year, and now they're 7-0 to start this year.
Absolutely. So, with a month left, there's a lot of talk of what's happening here, happening there. Iowa State's got themselves in a position they hold their own destiny on getting to the Big 12 and getting to the college football playoff. With all of that going on and being said, what is the tenor as far as around the program? Is it still just steady Eddie? Because first of all, the fans, we're crazy. So we're going to be talking about stuff, that maybe inside the locker room and in the complex they're not. But is it still just kind of steady Eddie inside, one game at a time? Or are they, we understand what's out there in front of us, and it's a big deal?
Yeah, I think they understand, the team does, that what's in front of them is really exciting and something that they can accomplish. And at the same time, they understand that you have to look at it one game at a time, go 1-0 every week. It's a process. And I think when you put it in these terms, Iowa State can start at 8-0 on Saturday with a win over Texas Tech for the first time in school history. But that doesn't really mean anything if you lose to KU the next week, because then you're 8-1, right? So then starting 8-0 means nothing. So they certainly understand the importance of what's in front of them and how big of a deal it would be if they won. But at the exact same time, you can't let that become your sole focus, because then you won't continue to have success.
Correct. I mean, preparation obviously is everything. I know that's coach speak, but it is the truth. You can have the goal, but if you don't use the steps to get the goal and you try to skip them, you usually fall down. Last question before I get you out of here, man. Tough game, like I said. As far as defensively of what Texas Tech is going to bring to the table, seems like Barrett Morton's going to be able to play in this game. I'm sure Iowa State's preparing for both quarterbacks because true freshman came in. And other than the bad fumble, which I don't necessarily blame on him, I thought you got Taj Brooks, hand him the ball if you want to center the football to kick a field goal. It's going to bring some challenges, but how does Iowa State win this game?
Yeah, to me, it's you got to be able to stop Texas Tech on the ground. Taj Brooks is one of the best, running backs in the country. I think Barrett Morton is a quarterback who's been really productive for them. Has already thrown for over 2,000 yards, I think, on the year, and has 17 passing touchdowns. So he's been really productive. At the same time, I also think that the biggest key for Iowa State is can you just stress them? Like, can you when you get to a certain number, is Texas Tech going to be able to keep up? Because Iowa State's defense has been the best in the Big 12 all season by most metrics. So I just think that Iowa State's going to be able to score a lot of points on Texas Tech this weekend because they're a defense that struggled. They've allowed over 50 points twice this season. They blew a 17-point lead last week to TCU. To me, if it gets to be like a major hectic shootout, like old school Big 12 shootout that we saw in like 2014, I don't think that's great for Iowa State. But if it's a situation where it's a 35-21 type game or whatever it ends up being, I think Iowa State will be able to pull away a little bit in the fourth quarter. And that's kind of how I've described a lot of their games this season. If you just look at it, that's how I described their game against West Virginia. That's how it went. That's kind of how I described their game against Houston. That's kind of how it went.
Right.
Honestly, how I described their game against Baylor, and that's how that went too. That's how I described the game against UCF. That's not how it went, but Iowa State outplayed UCF in the second half.
Right. Iowa State's the better football team, and if they come out and play, they'll win. But it could be intriguing because, Texas Tech, look, that offense, if it gets hot, it can be tough to stop, but I think Iowa State's got the team and the scheme to be able to do that. So we appreciate you, Alec, giving us your time today, discussing this. And as always, everybody, thank you guys. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.